Hi, everybody.
And here we are.
It's Niederman Describes episode number 5 already. As you can tell, we've done a little wardrobe change.
No, that's not what happened. We came back a 5th time.
Yeah, these
Right.
are all,
We're not shooting these episodes back to back.
Yeah.
That doesn't
all.
happen
Not at all.
in any situation.
Not in public
at
access,
all.
it doesn't.
No,
So,
nor Video Village in
we
Hollywood.
don't have a ton of time, so
Yes, we do.
The way that this goes is I'm Dan, I'm the facilitator.
We have 45 minutes. I'm Mike. I'm the Niederman.
I'm Jack. I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Perfect. So now that we have our ducks in a row, we're going to dive right in. And
Whack,
I'm going to ask Mike some questions, show Mike some clips, and let Mike talk, because that's what we are here to experience.
Michael describing things.
That's right. So, Mike, I want you to start off. First, a little backstory. We're in New York City, in case
Yes,
you
we
didn't
are.
know. The theater capital of the United States, if not the world.
Manhattan
And-
MNN is Manhattan Neighborhood Networks.
Manhattan Neighborhood Networks.
Public
on the
access
west
here.
side. We're on
Yeah.
West 59th Street. And not too far away.
Something happened to the video. Now it's
Oh,
back.
okay, we're back. There is currently in town a wonderful production of Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street,
Down
which I
at
was
the Bow
lucky
Street
enough
Theater.
to see
I
a
have
couple
not
of weeks
seen this
ago.
version.
It's an immersive production. They serve you food. The actors climb around on the tables. It's terrific.
The last
Mike,
Sweeney Todd I saw was about 10 years ago on Broadway. It was the stripped down version of it.
the John Doyle production.
With Michael Service and Patti LuPone. Patti
Yeah.
LuPone plays the tuba. It was great. I didn't know Sweeney Todd all that well when I saw it.
Yep.
So I'm like, there are things that were like, oh, at this point they're in the sewers. I'm like, oh wow, at this point they were on stage and there was a chair.
Mike, you have 2 minutes,
Yes.
and I'm going to time this. You have 2 minutes to describe the plot of Sweeney Todd.
So to attend this tale of Sweeney Todd, we have to go back to Victorian London, I believe it's Victorian London, where Sweeney Todd is a demon barber of Fleet Street who at the top, he's come back to London to right or wrong and get revenge, and he is a barber, so he's got, until he has razors that he uses to shave and cut hair, and he meets up with this chick,
Mrs. Lovett.
Mrs. Lovett, who makes the worst pies in London. Do you get it? And together they conspire to, because meat is so meager in this time and place, this setting, to kill people and then put them into the aforementioned worst pies in London. Many musical songs about that, and Sweeney Todd is there to, I forget actually, it's avenge the death of his wife or kill his daughter or something along those lines, and then there's a young girl and her lover, and then there's a bad guy who is like trying to control the young girl and the lover, and it's very Grand Guigon and very bloody, and there's the famous line, "At last my right arm is complete again," when he has the razor in his hand, and Sweeney Todd kills people and sings about it, and at the end of it, Sweeney Todd kind of dies. I say this because I don't know for certain. Dan, why did you make me do that? And the reason why is because Sweeney Todd is not this narrative complexity. It's a framework for a bunch of really wonderful Sondheim songs. But this is not the sort of thing where, oh my God, I'm so surprised by this reveal, or I hope this doesn't happen, and then it does, and then I feel suspense or horror. It's not really a plot-driven work.
I would disagree with you on that, but we're not going to get into that. I think it actually has quite a complex plot about past, meaning present.
Okay.
Like the book of the show is actually quite complex. But if you could describe in one word, what is the primary taboo?
Cannibalism.
Great.
Oh, dear God.
Put it on.
Yeah, I wonder
The
what's
sky
going to be going
is
on
blue
here.
and all the leaves are green. My heart's
Tell
as
me
big as
what
a
you
baked
see.
potato. So, you don't understand. This is Charlton Heston at the end of Soylent Green in one of the greatest lines in all of cinema going, I've seen it happening. Soylent. I've got to tell people. Tell them what, Charlton Heston? All these other characters have died in this. Soylent Green is people. Soylent Green is made out of people, and he's going to yell it to the heavens, which is based on this book called Make Room, Make Room, where in the future there is the population has risen so much, and when you die, they put you into a room where you see nature for the first time in your life, because everything is a city, and then they chop your body up and you turn it into Soylent Green, which is only one of the brands of Soylent.
Which is what happens in the film with the Burgess Meredith character.
Exactly.
Right?
Soylent Green is people! And this is one of the many movies in which Chuck Heston is the literal or figurative last man on Earth. You've got to tell the world, Soylent Green is people! With this, or what was the movie based on I Am Legend?
Omega Man.
Omega Man,
Yeah,
yes. Or multiple times he plays...
Planet of the Apes, obviously.
Yes, he plays the last man on
the
Earth.
most famous one of
and
all.
then Planet of the Apes Part 2, where he comes back and blows up the whole Planet of the Apes, meaning that sequentially the order of the Planet of the Apes movie in terms of time is Planet of the Apes 4, 5... is Planet of the Apes 4, 5, 3, 1, 2.
Oh, is that so?
That's so.
I've
Much
only
like
ever
Star
seen the first
Wars.
one. I've only ever seen...
The first one, and the second one, the whole Planet of the Apes blows up. Then the apes go back in time to
interesting.
Earth, and then at the end, and 4 is now it's apes versus human beings, but relatively
Who
equal.
knew that series
and
was such
then,
a Mobius strip?
And then it was Battle of the Planet of the Apes. So
Yeah.
the most recent Planet of the Apes, where the one with James Franco, is strictly speaking in the first one 3. Although there's no time machine.
Right.
If an ape eats a human, is that cannibalism?
No, you innocent slut, you, because we are not the same species. We're not the same genus. Kings play chess on folding glass. We're not the same family. We're probably only the same order. Fun fact: the scientific name of gorilla is gorilla. I love that. What's the next clip?
Interesting. We're not going to get to the next clip yet. I want to talk about Soylent Green for a second.
Okay.
And about how it relates to Sweeney Todd in the way that it approaches the taboo of cannibalism.
Well, they approach the taboo in, well, first of all, there's scarcity in both of these films.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
works of art. Is it Victorian London?
Yeah,
in
sure.
Victorian London,
Close enough.
meat is scarce, and she has to make meat pies.
Because
And
she's having to kill cats.
and no one's vegan,
Right.
and so they kill
That's their
people and
problem.
they go into the meat pies. And in Soylent Green, there's too many people, not enough food, so you can get Soylent from the government. Soylent Green is only one brand of Soylent, and that's how we feed the people. In Sweeney Todd, everyone's living in sort of squalor. And in Soylent Green, it's a squalor of futuristic dystopia, of we're all packed in here like sardines. And because that was a movie of the late 1960s, early 1970s, very much based on the A-Beam, Gerald Ford, New York Go to Hell failure of the urban experiment. Very much post Robert Moses.
It was also the beginning of the environmental movement was around then.
Yeah, very good. Say more about that.
Oh, now I have to describe.
Yes!
Oh my God!
Now Jack gets to
Yeah,
know.
the tables have
It
turned.
was in the 60s and early 70s that the environmental movement really got started, that people really started to worry about what we were doing in the environment. Were we going to run out of resources? It started with A Silent Spring, which was a book that was written by, I cannot remember the name of the woman who wrote it, but that was the book that I think came out in probably the mid-60s that kind of triggered us to start thinking about the environment and the idea of us running out of resources and running out of food and ruining the environment to the place that we could not grow food.
Otherwise known as 2017.
Exactly. That idea first reared its head around the time that this movie was being made.
Silent Spring was written by
Rachel Carson.
There we go.
Yes, I know stuff.
1962.
It's not about movies.
It's not about movies. He knows real world things.
Exactly. I read books.
I read the IMDb. So yeah, but in Sweeney Todd, cannibalism is a taboo created by a couple of outsiders.
Nice.
In that world. In Soylent Green, it's a government mandated program. So the Democrats are to blame. Yeah. Because anything top down by the government, that's sort of like the problem. That is the accusation of democratic programs, is that they take away our freedom and they feed you your own body. There's probably an abortion metaphor to be made in there somewhere. Next clip. Fragment. Oh, from The Cook, the Thief, his wife, and her lover. Where this is the very end of The Cook, the Thief, of the end of The Cook, the Thief, his wife, and his lover, where the lover has been killed by the thief, and the wife, played by a mid-40s
Helen Mirren.
Is now convinced the cook to cook the lover and force the thief to eat the body. And every person that the thief has wronged has come back to force this upon him. And this is also a movie, an early film with a young Tim Roth as one of the thief's thugs. Who directed this film?
Peter Greenaway directed this.
And all of Peter Greenaway's films are like this. They're slow and they're really well production designed, and there's a lot of long shots and there's a processional quality to it. One of his other movies is Prospero's Books, where John Gielgud plays Prospero, and then there's hundreds of naked people. Just bodies and bodies and bodies and things and things and things. And
one of the things that I enjoy about this movie so much, and this is actually my favorite Peter Greenaway movie, and also like one of my favorite movies of all time, is that it has his signature visual style, but it also has compelling characters.
Oh, yeah, like, and the other ones don't have compelling characters.
Yeah, and Michael Gambon gives like one of the most amazing sort of villain performances. His verbosity, the script is actually wonderful. It's incredibly witty and funny.
But to add on to it, like the design, they go from inside to outside. The clothes just change color.
Yeah, it's a different color scheme for each.
Works really well.
Michael Niederman was the composer, and his score is actually
quite famous. And now this is the feats, and take the cover off the food, and it's a reveal that it is a very slow. We still haven't got to it yet. Dead body, and he freaks out. And what is this? And finally, this Philistine is horrified for the first time.
It doesn't go all the way to the end.
Doesn't go all the way to the end.
That's too bad.
Of course, there is a. I'm listening to something right now, so I don't know what it is. Might be more Soylent Green stuff. Yeah.
Just hit pause.
This is when he discovers the Soylent Green is people. So
we have a huge technology budget, by the way, as you can tell.
Right. So that movie, The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and a Lover, it's used to disgust. It's used to disgust Michael Gambon's character, who is a disgusting.
It's also a metaphor for Thatcher's England.
Interesting. Say more about that.
Well, Gambon is considered, like he's supposedly sort of like the metaphor for the government. For sort of abusing the people, and Helen Mirren is. I forget what the breakdown is. Like I've heard it described as that. I'm not going to do a good job.
Clearly, the lover is the intelligentsia.
Yes, right. Absolutely.
And the cook is the working class.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think Helen Mirren is
the bourgeoisie.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
There we go.
You got it.
But he is such a horrible person.
Yeah.
Just a disgusting person. There's one moment in the film where he's flailing about in his abusive way, and he takes a fork and he stabs this woman right in the face, right by her cheek, and she's horrified by that.
Clip is actually in here. So.
Everything he does is horrifying. And then at the end of the movie, he is horrified, and she's got this great line, "Try the cock, where it's been."
And that's where one of my big disappointments in the film, and I love this film to death, however, the one moment in the film that I wish that they had gone actually further with was if he had actually eaten the cock. Because he starts to, he can't do it.
He goes
takes
to the
belly, and then he eats it, and then she shoots him.
Right.
I think he gets off too easily. I really, really, really wish in this movie that she had made him eat the cock.
Well, how do you make anyone eat a cock?
Well, just,
Dan really knows.
I think she could have. I mean, that's also a choice. That's a script choice as well.
Yeah, it's
like he could have just had to have done it.
Right. And there's also an R-rated version of this film with almost half the sex.
I can't imagine the R-rated version of this film.
This is one of the first famous NC-17 films.
But here's a film that's all about consumption. It's about eating. It's about most of the scenes we see of the thief are of him gorging himself at a table in the restaurant.
And the restaurant is a high-class,
really
haute cuisine restaurant, but we go behind the curtain, and all the food that's brought out is the best food, and everything else behind it is rotting in filth. And there's that one scene where they escape in the meat truck with all of this naked, with all of this rotting.
We've seen this before.
I've actually seen this.
He's
movie.
actually seen
a movie Jack has seen.
Jax finally has a time to shine.
Yay!
Okay. So, like, clearly the best is for the bourgeoisie. And then everything else is just rotting filth. And it's the shit that is underneath all of us. And if we're going to talk about eating, we have to talk about shit.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the act of consumption.
First scenes in the film, actually the very first scene involves some
well, they're beating up that guy.
Some guy, but they end up smearing him in shit.
Yes.
Because he's because the thief is, he's like a gangster, and this guy owes him money, and he hasn't been able to pay, so they beat him, piss on him, and smear him in shit.
And that's such a fundamental thing that we have a societal problem with. Any sort of bodily function that we can't do at the dinner table, we don't want to talk about, and yet it's something that we all do. And if you're a parent or you have a dog, it's everywhere.
Or someone who you have to take care of who can't do it on their own.
Exactly, and yet we don't want to contemplate that.
Right. But the end result that this entire movie goes towards, when it comes to consumption, is the act of eating human flesh.
Yes.
That is the last thing. That's what the whole movie builds towards.
And although in this movie, to further your analogy, it is the government eating the working class.
Yeah.
And vomit and retching, having to do that. Which, to take the Thatcherism to the most, Thatcher never retched at eating the working class. Thatcher loved to eat the working class.
Right.
Very much
Well,
so.
in that way, it's kind of a mirror image of what you were talking about with Soylent Green being about liberals.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, not about liberals, but about social programs being the destruction of us all.
Right, and this movie, by your metaphor, is basically making the opposite point of like conservatives and conservative government are eating the poor.
Well, that's what austerity is, and that's what these conservative governments want to bring into, is that we need to save money, so the way we do that is to cut welfare. And then the poor will be forced to eat themselves, and the rest of us can dine on beluga caviar and lobster. Speaking
I have
of
one more clip.
Conspicuous consumption, the sky is blue and all the leaves are green. My heart's as big as a baked potato. And this is Hannibal Season 3. They haven't gotten to Season 4 yet, although they might bring it back on Netflix. And here we have Scully, who has been in a weird relationship with Hannibal throughout all of Season 3, who has... That's her leg that's been cooked on the dinner table, and the camera pans down, and we see she is missing her leg. At this point in the show, Hannibal and the FBI agent, Jack Welch, have perhaps jumped off a cliff to their deaths. And she is there laughing. We don't know if he has chopped her leg off and cooked it, or she has, as if to say, I made dinner, honey.
And we may never know because the series was canceled
after that moment,
Yeah.
although
And
it might come
I
back.
think it's a lot of wishful thinking that the series is going to come back.
I don't know. Brian Fuller says he's
Fuller's-
written another episode and everyone's invested.
Great.
And Netflix
Can't
brings
wait.
shows back now. Fuller House, we're looking at you. The thing about this show is that, as opposed, this show and the Hannibal films didn't just have cannibalism, but they had forced self-cannibalism.
Yes.
Where characters were forced to eat their own bodies. Reminds me very much of a Stephen King story.
Survivor type.
Where the man is trapped on a desert island with just a scalpel and a fuck ton of heroin, and he's a doctor. And in order to survive, well, he breaks his ankle, so he has to amputate, and then there's a line. I was very careful. I washed it very thoroughly before I ate it. And then he slowly, feet, shins, legs. He eats his legs, his buttocks, and then the last is earlobes, and then he's trying to save his hands because he's a surgeon. And then the last line of the short story is ladyfingers. They taste just like ladyfingers. He eats his own hand.
And it's his journal. The whole thing is like his journal.
And he's slowly going mad.
Yeah.
So here characters are forced to eat their own body.
Right.
And it tastes, because it's Hannibal,
It tastes amazing.
He's the greatest cook of all time.
Remember the scene in Hannibal where he's feeding Ray Liotta his brain?
Yes, that was the movie Hannibal, as opposed to in the television show where he
feeds Eddie Izzard to
feeds
himself.
Eddie Izzard his own leg.
How does he feed somebody their own brain?
Well,
he's
chops
taking
it
out.
out.
He takes
the skull
the skull off.
He takes part of the brain. There's no nerve
And he's
endings
drugged.
in the brain, and he's drugged. So he cooks it up in a little butter and garlic and eats it. And Ray
Liotta's
Liotta's
like,
got
"Oh,
this
that's
line.
delicious."
It smells good. Says Ray
Before
Liotta
he
when
finally
he's
dies.
not abusing Julianne Moore because he's Julianne Moore's boss. And so in these movies, the Hannibal films and television shows, these people deserve it. They are like Hannibal. He doesn't like rude people.
Right.
And so it's a punishment. And it is the most ironic of punishments, being forced to eat your own body. I don't know if it's an ironic punishment, but it's definitely
However, in
grotesque.
this scene, Bedelia's not being punished, it seems.
We don't know who cut her leg off.
Right.
And she's been a prisoner of Hannibal all season.
Right.
So maybe
However,
she cut her leg off?
she's also complicit to a certain degree in his
course.
crimes. And so I'm so intrigued by that scene because I'm like, what happened? And we may never
know.
Because the season literally ended on a cliffhanger, and we just don't know what's going to happen.
They literally
next.
fell off
But
the cliff.
What is so interesting in the scene to me is cannibalism as sensuality. Like there's something incredibly sensual and very sexy about the scene of her leg laid out and just like, garnished and put on display on this table. And she's sitting there waiting, obviously in some sort of anticipation for someone, we assume Hannibal, to join her for this feast on her.
Yeah, there is, and I'm blanking.
Is this consensual?
I'm blanking on the name of the film. And I think it's a Cronenberg film. But it's an early 80s vampire movie in which literally the characters will have sex with each other, and that's how you get the vampirism gene or disease, and then you suck each other's blood. And it's such a clear metaphor for sexually transmitted disease.
HIV.
I don't know off the top of my head. But especially in the post-HIV world, where sex has become so plastic and so sanitized, theoretically, that we've lost an aspect of that sensuality, where we're just rolling in bed with our body parts and our fluids, and are these grapes, or is this ejaculate? Who knows? Let's just swallow it all. A lot of sex is about the mouth. A lot of sex is about swallowing, and we're not allowed to do that anymore, in theory. And so sex is a taboo, and it's become more of a taboo in this day of age because of what we're living in. We have more and more taboos as we get older, not fewer. Right. And the reason why is that we're more scared. And I feel that this Thatcherism metaphor is started by fear. Fear of the unwashed immigrants, fear of the working class rising up. This is why May is trying to have a strong, secure Britain. This is why Trump got elected. Well, there's a lot of reasons why Trump got elected, but one of them was fear.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's fear of us, guys. It's fear of this so-called liberal urban elite who can go out to the bar on a Saturday night and talk about theories and be okay,
right,
and not need this foundation of traditional American values that they say exists, and that we can have
and
grand
to
orgies
me
into the night.
It should go without saying that the foundation of traditional American values enables us to go out to the bars and to talk about theories. Like we live in a place that is safe to do that, where that's permissible and where that is valued.
Right.
Not,
although less so now because of gentrification
or only in certain places.
And corporatization. A lot of those places have gone away, which is, as a native New Yorker, I'm very much aware of, is that we are cannibalizing the city. With high rises, a lot of, like, you drive down any block, you see vacant storefronts, and not vacant because the thing burned down, vacant because the landlords just want to charge more rent and hoping that a CVS will come in there. This is cannibalism of our culture. We cannibalize ourselves. What's the last great cultural movement of the last 10 years? Exactly. You can't.
I don't know.
You can't
I
name
really
it
don't know. I
because it
can't
doesn't exist. Because all we can do is look back at what people before us have done. Before we've had every single clip of every movie ever made at our fingertips,
Right.
and we can find everything. And maybe we're not creating new things. I don't know. But cannibalism is not a creative act. It might be a sensual act. It might be a transgressive act, but it is a destructive act. It is not an act that allows for something new. It is an act of a society that is turned in on itself and can only eat itself. And that's why it's a horror show. That's why we have movies like Cannibal Holocaust. You know about Cannibal Holocaust?
No.
Oh, Cannibal
Tell me about
Holocaust
that.
is
Please.
Cannibal Holocaust was one of the great 1970s horror films where the film director almost got convicted for murder. It's about a bunch of people who go to the jungle in the rainforest in South America and come across a tribe of cannibals, and one by one they are picked off and eaten. And so the film is, we found the footage of these people who have been killed, and it is such a convincing film that
I want to see this.
that they thought that those people died. And in their contracts, they weren't allowed to do any other movies for a couple of years so that they could appear dead. He had to bring them into the trial and say, no, they are alive. And
They actually went to trial? Like,
Yeah,
you couldn't do that before trial?
well, he acted. I don't know if this is actually
I'm sure
like,
this gave him a
"Hear
lot of
ye,
good
hear ye,
publicity
where
for
is
his
this film?"
movie, too.
It was banned in hundreds of countries, which also was great for publicity. And I remember being a small child in New York City and seeing posters for Cannibal Holocaust. Walking down the street, and I must have been something like 5 years old, something like that, and just like, there must be amazing, horrible things happening right outside my door, that if only my parents would let me go out at night, I could go see this movie of Cannibal Holocaust. I remember in Times Square, a huge ad was for Oh Calcutta.
Right.
I remember that, actually. I totally remember that one.
You remember that ad?
The
Or you
old
remember-
Calcutta
ad.
yeah.
As we wrap it up,
Yeah.
describe O Calcutta.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
Although
What do you know about it?
Although I did AD for one of the directors of it. It was a Broadway sketch play where everyone was naked the entire time.
Yeah.
Like hair, except funny. Or maybe not funny. And I just know that there was one clip where everyone's masturbating to the Lone Ranger, and they have like screens of what they're masturbating to, and then one person's masturbating to the Queen, and he can't come because of the Queen. And I don't know if it was any good or if it was just like
It ran forever, though.
Because
It
we
was
have-
like a long running
on
show.
for-
dicks
wow.
on stage, and that was allowed, and it was something that, like, okay, we're not saying that this is good, we're saying that this is amazing because it's dicks on stage, and let's just try to amaze ourselves by what we can accomplish, what we can allow, and you can't do that anymore. We can't even kill Trump on stage, which I'm trying to
Much less eat his penis.